And a good afternoon, everybody. It is now time for a World Away read-along. Ooh, I'm excited. So here I am with my beautiful, beautiful bookworms. Today it's going to be just us girls, I suppose. Say hello, Teal and Harami.
Hello.
Oh, well, guess what, you guys? I was so busy talking about manga with these girls with these ladies, with these bookworms, that I forgot to set up the set up the OBS. So yeah, we're live, but I'm setting up feverishly as I talk. So if you notice that I am a little bit absent-minded, it's because I cannot multitask to save my life. And so here we are. Can you guys do me a favor? I am setting up in the background. Could you remind the readers what happened in the last read-along, please?
Oh, so Eglantine makes her first appearance, I think.
And she's Zent.
Yeah, and
So
how did she come about that role, if you guys remember?
Well, apparently she couldn't choose between Sigismund and Anastasius. So, in the end, the Zent had to adopt her because the boys were fighting either way.
Yep.
The problem is the Zent didn't choose either of the boys to succeed him because they didn't find them fit for it. So Eglantine was the one who took the throne with her adopted mother's help.
Who is her adopted mother?
Oh, I always forget her
name.
Yeah,
Magdalena. And yeah, pretty interesting situation that they find themselves in. Eglantine now has 5 husbands or lord consorts or whatever you want to call them, from different duchies. Right? Oh, hey, welcome, Patrick.
Hey, Magpie.
Happy to see you here. So yeah, we're just going through the events of the last read along. I don't know if you were able to listen in or not, but to all of it. Okay, I know you were in there like around the end-ish. I saw you in the chat. We said hello. But yeah.
Yeah, I went back and listened.
Okay, cool. So you're all caught up. So that was chapter 80 something. I lost track of the numbers. Then there's also
4 and 5.
So that's what's happening over in the sovereignty. And then what is going on in Ehrenfest with Myne?
She's feeling lonely.
Yeah, she's feeling it. She's moved to Lady Elvira's house, and I think she's trying to fill the void by, like absolutely just getting into her studies. And for the most part, she's been doing good, but she had a moment where it just got pretty bad. I mean, it's winter. She's in lockdown. She's away from her family. She's away from Eckhart. Everything. She's not in her home. So everything's just kind of like piling up on her. Like if I were her, I would probably be an emotional mess too. So there's that. Anything else that you want to remind us before we start into the read?
Well,
we had
she's
Teal and then Harami.
We saw the glorious return of Leslie-kun.
Yay!
The panda bus.
And the panda bus attacking Cornelius.
Poor Cornelius, yeah.
Really? Poor Cornelius. That's a phrase I didn't think we would say in the context of A World Away, but there you go. And I think we haven't gotten much Dolores, but we'll get to her by and by. Don't you worry. Dolores is living in the Linkberg estate with all of them, so that's something to look forward to. All right, so today we're just going to continue on with chapter 86 and 87. But before we
you get into that,
Oh,
or are you gonna do it?
oh, I was actually going to say hello
Like
to the.
subscribe.
Yeah, that's important too. I was gonna read out loud the comments on YouTube, but okay. All right, you want to do it, Patrick? Since you're way better at it than I am, won't you please do it?
I mean, you're gonna have to learn one of these days anyway. But like and subscribe, everybody. Please support your magpie and join us on the Ko-fi. We have so much fun over here. I mean, not everybody can be as chaotic as me, but I welcome you all to try. So please come along, and I'll look forward to seeing you here.
Yes, we would love to have you here. Give Patrick a run for his money. I think the gauntlet has been thrown, but please don't overdo it, or I shall have to exercise my royal dignity and authority, and you know what?
She's a tyrant.
I'm not. Slander. All right. So I also want to say hello to Crusher, who says, "Greetings, everyone. I will play this stealthily in the background at work. Looking forward to eventually getting to the infamous chapter 103. What is chapter 103? I'm now like intrigued. What did I write in chapter 103? Can someone don't remind us, because then that will be spoilers. But I shall have to live with the mystery for the next hour, and I'll have to look it up later. Happy to see you here, Crusher.
This is the author, folks. She doesn't know what she wrote.
Hey, this whole thing has taken me almost 3 years to write, okay? Oh, chapter 103, that chapter. Oh, okay. Okay. I hope you like that chapter when we get to it. I kind of like it. Anyway, but there's nothing infamous about it, okay? Also, Teal was on the chat in this with us. Says, I skipped over here just to loaf around when I realized I was all out of puns. But still early, gang. That's gotta count for something. And yeah, you say that, but you're definitely using those puns. After we have a read along, we are doing a Skip and Loafer watch party on the Discord server. It's one of our favorite. Well, I can't speak for Patrick, but definitely for Hiremi, Teal, and I. It's one of our, and me. Me? This is I or me?
Myself.
For myself. One of our favorite animes and mangas, and it's having a return sometime. Season 2 is coming in sometime, maybe next year. It's promised, so we're excited and we're hyped up, and we want to share it with as many Discord people that want to join us. So if you're out there listening and you want to watch with us anime, hop aboard, get on Ko-fi, and become a member for as little as $5 a month. All right.
And you don't even need to continue that subscription.
Will you stop it?
Unless you want to.
Yes, you do have to continue, because I go through the names and the lists every single month, and I'm like, okay, this person,
she's lying.
They're trolls. I will kick them out. Who cares if they are members? They're just bothersome nuisances, and they have hurt my feelings, or like, I definitely.
If that was true, I wouldn't be here.
All right, so. Don't spill the secret. Come on, dude. You know what? All I really care is that we build a beautiful community. So yes, it has happened that somebody can't, they just can't support on a monthly basis. And I know we live in a society and we live in an economy. I just continue to be a good sport, continue to be part of the community, and There. That's a secret. That's a big secret. Shh. All right. So yes. Hop aboard. It'll be fun. All right. So, let's get this started. It's been 10 minutes in, so we might as well just get reading. So, reading today, we are doing chapter 86 and 87. Patrick, do you want a reading roll? I have one that I can give away.
Oui.
Okay, you can be Eustace.
I can be eccentric.
You can be Eckhart if you want. I know how much you enjoy that.
If you're willing to give me Eckhart, then I'm okay with that.
Okay, so Patrick. And then Teal.
Am I getting both?
Mm,
Or just one?
I was going to ask Teal, do you want to take on Eustace? Or are you good with what you have? You're doing Ferdinand and Dolores.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you want Eustace?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right. Excellent. See, cooperation and professionalism in 2025. Nice. Behold, everybody. So, chapter 86, we have reading Elvira, Magpie. Dolores will be read by Teal. Eckhart will be read by Patrick. Myne will be read by Hirami. Eustace by Teal will be read by Teal. Ferdinand will be read by Teal as well. Eglantine will be read by Hirami. All right, so that's chapter 86 and 87. And of course, 1,001 thank yous to Hirami and Teal, who are amazing at highlighting these chapters and who make these read-alongs possible.
Hello, C. Rodriguez.
Hey, how are you, C. Rodriguez? Happy to see you and welcome. We are excited because you got here just in time. We're about to get started with chapter 86. I'm all set up, so let's get this done. Chapter 86. Letters. Myne, Eckhart. Summary. Life goes on. Myne and Eckhart update each other on what is going on in their lives while they are apart. Elvira frowned down at the handkerchief in her hands. It was of the richest quality, pale green in color, and trimmed with exquisite gold lace at the borders. However, it also bore the result of 2 hours' embroidery work. Elvira couldn't help but be disappointed at the uneven letters which were Myne's handiwork. "Myne," she began, "it seems that it would benefit you to spend less time with books and devote more time practicing your embroidery. Your skill is sorely lacking." Myne looked aghast at Elvira's words, while across from her, Dolores emitted a sound akin to a snort, a behavior unbecoming of a lady. Elvira glared in the direction of the raven-haired girl, but Dolores sunk her chin to her chest in order to avoid showing the expression on her face. Still, after 2 weeks of sharing her home with her future daughters-in-law, it was plainly evident that Dolores was only too pleased by Myne's shortcomings finally being pointed out. "What a petty child," Elvira thought with an inward sigh. How had Elvira's placid, peace-loving friend mothered such a bellicose, willful, and temperamental daughter? What had Adderley been thinking of when raising Dolores? It was enough to make Elvira want to cradle her head in her hands. Try as she might, the past 2 weeks had been nothing short of a failure. The two girls would not get along with each other, no matter what Elvira tried to do. Tea parties, shared meals, evenings by the fire reading or playing the harpspiel, or listening to a book being read aloud while embroidering. All her attempts to foster camaraderie resulted in monosyllabic exchanges. Myne, being the more mature one, did not outright antagonize Dolores. But Dolores was a different story. It was an unfortunate but lucky circumstance that made it so Myne had to spend the majority of her day cooped up with books in her chambers or in the bookroom. That did not mean that Myne was off the hook from the embroidery she hated so much, and Elvira was not about to play favorites and let her avoid the things she hated the most. Embroidery was a crucial skill for a woman. She was about to tell Myne to redo the embroidery when a servant entered carrying a tray with a letter on top of it. Elvira took the letter with a murmured word of thanks and recognized the handwriting immediately. It was her son Eckhart's impatient, bold writing. The seal was broken, indicating the letter had been scrutinized by the Ob scholars, and possibly the Ob himself, having arrived via the teleportation circle from the Royal Academy. "It's for you, Myne," she said, handing over the letter. Myne's face lit up as she eagerly took it. Elvira hesitated, noting the girl's wistful expression. Her heart twisted in sympathy. "Fine. Call it favoritism or whatever." Elvira just couldn't help indulging Myne. "Oh, very well. You're both dismissed. But be sure to practice your embroidery. I want to see improvement from you. And you too, Dolores. Just because your starbind is still a ways off doesn't mean you can slack off."
Yes, Lady Elvira.
Dolores said, handing her embroidery to her attendant, before rising and wishing her good night with a very correct and perfectly executed curtsy. Meanwhile, Myne had already rushed out of the room, leaving her pathetic excuse of an embroidered handkerchief. Elvira shook her head and grimaced as she once more glanced at the handkerchief in her hands. Oh well, there were extenuating circumstances in Myne's case. Her eagerness to read her letters showed how much she cared for and worried about Eckhart. So she'd allowed it. Just this once. Myne wanted to shake off her attendance the moment she entered her room. She had been waiting for Eckhart's letter for a few days now, and the wait between each letter was pure torment. Now that she had his letter in her hand, she had to put it down so her attendants could undress her, bathe her, and prepare her for bed. She wanted to scream, but held in her impatience, doing what she could to speed up the nighttime rituals. Soon enough, she was in bed, cozy and warm, with Eckhart's letter in hand. It began as it always did, with paragraphs upon paragraphs of writing that went on from giving her butterflies in her stomach to making her feel more and more hot and bothered as he went on. She had to fan her red face by the time she finally got to the more serious stuff.
I can't even begin to describe the sheer incompetence of those running the temple before Lord Ferdinand arrived. It infuriates me that because of those fools, my lord has to slave away trying to fix what, in my eyes, is irreparable. I suggested burning it all down and starting from scratch, but he flatly refused. The only comfort I have is knowing that those responsible for the mess have already been sent up the towering staircase. But enough about unsavory topics. They're not worth putting into a letter for you to read. Rest assured, we are safe, and Lord Ferdinand is, as ever, putting everything to rights. He has always been peerless in everything. It is only now that he's here in the sovereignty that the world can see it. I guess that is the one good thing about this mess. The fruits of his labors are evident for all to see. Even Zen Eglantine and her scholars seem to be impressed. One even murmured about how Lord Ferdinand was wasted on the temple. The words died in his mouth when he happened to glance my way. Perhaps he saw the sheer disgust that his words elicited in me. Why must they try to poach him again and again?
He mentioned something that she had never known before. For the past couple of years, Zent Eglantine had been pressuring Ehrenfest to send Ferdinand to the sovereignty. First as one of her consorts, and when that failed, as a high bishop of the sovereign temple. He hinted at some extreme measures that Ferdinand and Sylvester both took to avoid losing him to the Zent, but did not outright say what they were. Possibly the topic was too sensitive to mention in a letter that would be intercepted and read by others. The next day, however, she took advantage of the fact that Dolores had guard duty and was at the castle to ask Lady Elvira about what she knew. The good woman was actually surprised that Myne didn't know how Ferdinand, in spite of being free to return to noble society after the Veronican threat was eliminated, clung onto his temple post for so long to avoid getting embroiled with politics, and when the Zent somehow learned about him and tried to get him to the sovereignty, they had to invent a tale that Charlotte was desperately in love with her uncle and had pleaded with the Zent to agree to their marriage. Zent Eglantine had been moved, so she said, and allowed it, as long as Charlotte came in first in her class every year and agreed to have this Ehrenfest temple, which was so well supplied with mana, assist the sovereign temple when needed. Sylvester's daughter, who was most definitely not in love with her uncle, had done her best to live up to the Zent's expectations. But in the end, it was all for naught. Zent Eglantine had broken her promise and summoned Ferdinand to her side anyway, though at least not as her consort. "That's no doubt why my son is so bitter when it comes to Zent Eglantine," Elvira said, looking troubled. "I don't even want to repeat the things he's called her." That afternoon, Myne struggled with her studies, and in the end gave up and sat down on the window seat in her room to stare out at the wide world outside as she processed everything she'd learned so far. Slowly but surely, she put the pieces together and realized that there were other circumstances she hadn't known about why Ferdinand could not marry her. He might take her as a secret mistress, but Ferdinand had promised her father not to be a Wigley to her, and Gunther had stipulated that he'd only give his blessing if Ferdinand took Myne as his one and only wife. The whole thing had been doomed from the start, and while it hurt to think of how a future for the both of them was really impossible, Myne at least felt a little bit of comfort knowing that Ferdinand had other reasons to turn her down, reasons beyond his control. But still, would it have hurt him to explain things to her? On top of that, she now felt a growing resentment toward Lady Charlotte. Not only was she taking credit for Myne's inventions and recipes, but she had also played a part in taking Ferdinand from Myne. And she wasn't even in love, nor cared for Ferdinand as she should. It just wasn't fair. Myne was glad that, after the Salon fiasco, she had kept Charlotte at a distance. They still met, but their interactions were now formal and lacked the warmth and friendliness they once had as pen pals. Myne intended to maintain this polite, business-like relationship with Lady Charlotte from now on. But enough about that. She distracted her mind from the grudging feeling gnawing inside her by getting out a sheet of paper to respond to Eckhart's letter, though not for worlds would she tell him about what she had learned and her conflicting emotions about Lady Charlotte. Besides, it didn't change anything when it came to her relationship with Eckhart. Her feelings for him remained the same, or maybe grew even more. What was that saying about distance making the heart grow fonder? Indeed, it was true, for she missed him terribly. Rather than grumble and gripe about things in Ehrenfest, she opted to thank him for the flowers. Before leaving, he had apparently made arrangements to make sure a glorious bouquet would reach her at least once a week, and told him about her upcoming tea party with Lord Vicentius's wife and daughter. Once Lord Ferdinand had this... Oh, is that the end? Okay, yeah. That's the end of the Myne POV. Now the Eckhart POV starts. Once Lord Ferdinand had dismissed them at the end of the day, Eckhart and Eustace both stepped through a small service door to a smaller chamber that served as their break room. Eustace was nice enough to brew them both a cup of tea, while Eckhart took out the latest letter he had received from Myne. He had been carrying it around all day, and only now was he at liberty to peruse it.
I miss you more than ever. It amazed me how quickly I came to rely on you to feel complete. Your hands anchored me, helping me trust myself despite the uncertainty around me. With you, I could always leap into the no, knowing you'd keep me from dashing against the rocks. They say being apart from the person one loves is torture. I never understood that as well as I do now. I'm contented living at your family estate, and your mother is kind to me, but I confess it feels like living half a life. I feel so incomplete and off center without you. It's even hard to fall asleep now. It's not just the lack of your warmth or your scent and your presence that makes nights interminable. I worry about you. Despite how much you like to play it off, I know you all finding it extremely challenging to adjust to your new life. Are you getting enough rest? Do you still have enough food? Don't hesitate to send word when you are running low or if you need anything at all for your comfort. I will have my cooks in the Italian restaurant make new dishes for you, or Mark Gutenberg's make whatever else you need.
Seriously, you two.
Eustace said in exasperation behind Eckhart.
Can't you be a little more circumspect in your letters? How do you expect the castle scholars to react when they read about how you're pining for each other?
Eckhart smiled at Eustace mischievously.
Haven't you heard from Lord Ferdinand? Bob Sylvester said that he's tired of hearing his scholars complain about our lovey-dovey letters. Did you know that they even pleaded with tears in their eyes that he forbid us from writing each other? That was, of course, unacceptable, so instead he told them not to bother reading our letters and just deliver them as they were, unopened.
Eustace laughed.
Now it all makes sense. Your first letters were downright pornographic. Yes, I confess I peeked. I wish I hadn't. I can't even imagine Lady Myne's reaction to receiving such filth.
The corner of Eckhart's mouth ticked up. She had told him exactly just how she had reacted to reading his explicit descriptions of things he wanted to do to her, but he did not utter a single syllable to his gray-haired companion. In any case, Eckhart's little gamble had paid off.
Don't stay too late writing now,
Eustace said as he left Eckhart for the night. Eckhart vaguely waved him off, already getting engrossed once more in his letter.
Living in confinement is strange. I try not to dwell on it, but I find it funny how I used to love socializing and now I miss it. Just a little. I mentioned this to your mother, and guess what she did? As soon as the snowstorm cleared, she announced special visitors for tea. Lady Charlotte and Lady Florencia, of all people. It was quite a surprise. Another day, Dolores invited two friends from school, Lady Isolde and Lady Marina. I hate to admit it, but I was shocked not only by their freely chatty girly girl appearance, which seems to clash with so Dolores' door and aggressive personality, but also by the fact that Dolores has any friends at all. Reading this back, I realized it sounds awful, and I wish I could take it back, but I really can't. She's so contrary that she somehow take offense against her brother for being under my employment. Can you imagine? I never thought I would say this in my entire life, but poor Hartworth. This one and only his only one and only sister refused to come down and see him whenever he comes to because he's doing what he's supposed to do for work, reporting for me about work, or to help tutor me on practicals. Regarding Lady Isolde and Lady Marina, your mother didn't know them or their families well, so she used the opportunity to gather information. She did it so masterfully that it was almost undetectable. Her skill at intelligence gathering during social situations is both inspiring and a little scary. She puts people at ease, quickly discerns what they want, and offers it a little cost to herself. Once their defenses are down, she strikes. Somehow, people end up volunteering information on their own. Afterwards, she quizzed me to see how much I had learned, not just about our guests and their families, but about how to do what she just did. Have I told you how much I admire Lady Elvira? No? Well, I admire her very much. Not even Lady Florencia or Lady Charlotte are as skilled information gatherers. I have no hope to even be like her, though not for lack of trying. I'm doing my best, I assure you. I just wish she'd stop harping me to come out of my room more often and practice my embroiderment. What a pain. You're lucky you weren't born a girl. Personally, most thankful you weren't born a girl because then you wouldn't be you and that would be a tragedy. However, for you, I'll continue to practice my embroidery. I will I will brave the needle and run it into my fingers if necessary so that someday you and our children can feel safe and protected and above all, proud to wear the things I made for you. Until then, we'll have to be content with me mending letters full of kisses and hopes and prayers that you are all well. Keep this letter with you as a poor substitute for a talisman against evil. As for me, I'll sleep with your letters next to me. I know it's not the same thing as your kisses and caresses, your warm hands and everything else, but it will do until you come back to me and remain yours.
When he was in his bed at last, Eckhart took out the letter once more and sighed when he was done rereading it, resting it against his chest. Reading her letters made him feel homesick. During the day, there was too much going on for him to dwell on how much he needed her, but nights? They were awful without her. Worse still, when he thought about how that red-headed little snake Hartmut was slowly ingratiating himself with Myne, he wanted to gnash his teeth together. Indeed, he was grateful that Angelica was with Myne, keeping her safe at all times. She had orders to cut off appendages if necessary, starting with the smallest one. Just in case, though, he would make sure to remind Myne to be on guard against him. Never mind that he was being so helpful and making himself so indispensable to Myne.
Please be careful, Myne.
He was pleased to know that his mother was carefully vetting their visitors. While winter socializing was happening elsewhere, his mother prioritized Myne's safety above all. Despite not being at the center of all the winter socializing activities, it seemed his mother was still managing to gather information. No doubt that's why she immediately exchanged information with the Ob's wife. He wondered what he would write back to Myne. In spite of Sylvester saying that neither he nor his scholars wanted to pry into the lovers' affairs, and that their letters would reach them unopened, Eckhart didn't feel altogether confident in those assurances. With that concern in mind, he decided to omit certain developments of the sovereignty, to spare Myne unnecessary worry. So, when he finally had time to pen his response, he did not write about how Lord Ferdinand was in the thick of restructuring the temple, shuffling dangerous or incompetent individuals out of positions of power. He also didn't disclose plans to relocate the sovereign temple to the Royal Academy, and how they were moving all the rituals there with an eye of closing down the sovereign temple for good within a year. Neither did he tell her the reason why they still had plenty of food. Lord Ferdinand was eating next to nothing. Both he and Eustace worried over it and racked their brains to figure out ways to get their master to get proper rest and more than one square meal a day, But it was in vain. When he wasn't working or sleeping, Lord Ferdinand spent a great deal of time in his hidden room. But oddly enough, when he came out, he didn't look at all the worse for wear. He didn't reek of nourishment potions, and despite the strain of life and the sovereignty, he seemed to be happier? No, it couldn't be. Perhaps it was simply that he appeared less miserable than they anticipated, considering how on the day they left Ehrenfest, he'd had the air of someone marching off to the gallows. No, Myne didn't need to know about all that. Eckhart took up his quill, dipped it in ink, and proceeded to fill pages and pages full of things that would surely make Sylvester and his scholars blush, but that would, above all, ensure that Myne never doubted his love for her, nor his longing to hold her close. End of chapter.
I know why he's looking so happy.
Oh, what do you think? Why do you think he's happy?
He's using that invention that Myne gifted him to hear her voice.
Oh, the carillon? Carillon? I don't even know how to say it. Yeah.
You wrote the thing.
I know, but I know a lot of words. I know a lot of words that I can't pronounce because you just don't use them in every day, okay? Please excuse your ESL person here. English is not my first language, so I can use that card anytime. Typos, English second language. Out of character writing, English is my second language.
It's all a bunch of excuses, people.
It's not an error. It is. It's. Oh no, my dad is a musician, so
Happy mistake.
Yeah, happy mistake. But he would. Yeah, that's Bob Ross. My dad, being a musician, he would say it's not a mistake. It's an arrangement. So that's yeah. So here we go. Letters. So the sovereignty scholars don't want to read through the letters that come through that are meant for Myne. So that's the result is that they decided, no, you don't have to read them. They're just full of fluff. Who wants to read them? Nothing important there. That's just being them. The two of them being fluffy, lovey-dovey. Love it. Let's see, what else do we have here? So Ferdinand is being, his usual secretive self. We don't know yet what's going on, but we're gonna have the next chapter. We're gonna go into Ferdinand's POV to see what's life like in the sovereignty for him. I forgot to write it in this chapter, but during those first couple of weeks, there were at least 2 attempts on Ferdinand's life, and Eckhart did away with those threats. So he also didn't tell Myne about that. But yeah, so yeah, it's it's as expected. The sovereignty has its risks. But yeah, it's a good thing that Eckhart went with him.
It amazes me how well he could make a safe line for communication.
Yeah.
By flirting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these nobles, they would never be able to, like... Okay, so you guys remember how Ferdinand was appalled at the romance, the schoolgirl romance that Myne wrote? Imagine how they're going to react when, that was shocking and, appalling for a noble. So imagine like these absolutely uncensored, I'm gonna do this and I love you this and all this thing. Yeah, they certainly found that appalling, to say the least. I like how there was a comment there that somebody did a little sample in the AO3 in this chapter. They were like they did a little letter. It's like, yeah, I bet the letters read like this, and it was pretty funny.
No way, I have to see it. I
Yeah,
didn't saw
check the
it.
comments. Somebody was like, yeah, and I bet the letter read like this, and of course they did like
Oh
some like little censoring in there, but it was pretty funny when I read it. All right, so we'll see now. So Patrick thinks that it's the sound recording device that he's playing back in the hidden room. So we'll see. Let's get to the bottom of what's going on with Ferdinand in this following chapter. Chapter 87, Hidden Room 2, Ferdinand POV. Summary. Answering the question of what is Ferdinand up to in his hidden room, and what did he and Eglantine talk about when they met a few chapters ago. Almost immediately after arriving at the Sovereignty, Ferdinand met with Zent Eglantine. He had pondered whether it was even worth asking, but did so anyway. The moment he had an anti-eavesdropping device on hand, he asked,
Did you try to circle the shrines and offer your mana to the gods once more?
Zent Eglantine kept a perfectly neutral expression as she said the words he dreaded to hear the most.
Yes, I went to every single shrine marked out on the map, but nothing changes, just like before.
Something is definitely wrong. She has an omni-elemental stab. There's no reason why she shouldn't be pulled into the gods' shrines.
Unfortunately, this meant that they wouldn't be able to get the Grutus right, the proper and easiest way, by circling the shrines before going to the Garden of Beginnings. With the library's basement sealed, and the library magic tools unable to open the way for them, it was also impossible to retrieve it from the hidden archives like all the other royals had previously done.
I will try to get to the bottom of this at some point. Meanwhile, we have no choice but to go with the second plan. I will need access to the Royal Academy Library alone to seek out some information first.
At present, the library is sealed. It is one of the Academy's buildings I have been trying to secure and save from collapse. However, I can order it open if necessary.
She heaved a small sigh.
The revelation said that you were the key to save Jürgen Smith. It is specified that you, the only holder of the Grutenheit, knew the way to the wisdom of the gods and could guide me to it. And I confident that I have not been led astray.
Ferdinand flinched. This nonsense again. He'd only just teleported from Ehrenfest. His retainers and he had much to do to set up their living quarters, meet with the temple staff to get a firm grasp of the workings of the temple, establish some semblance of an information network, and above all, visit the Royal Academy for some research. On top of that, he was beginning to get another headache. Yet here he was, wasting time listening to this drivel. Every time Zent Eglantine alluded to the revelation, what she called a series of quasi-prophetic dreams that she had received soon after her coronation, and which had led her to discover the secret he had kept so well hidden for years, it set his teeth on edge. Ferdinand's expression remained neutral, but inwardly he cursed. He especially cursed the day in his youthful curiosity had led him to the book that had gotten him into this scrape to begin with. Zent Eglantine smiled and continued.
Because the gods are guiding us, I have full confidence that our efforts will not be unrewarded.
Indeed,
Was all he said. He could not risk saying anything more for fear of saying something impertinent about the gods she so blindly trusted in. Soon after this, their meeting was done, and he swept away with his two retainers trailing behind him.
That took longer than I expected. Oh, sorry.
it's okay.
Oh, that's Ferdinand.
So I should read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
That took longer than I expected.
Ferdinand murmured once they had transferred over to the Sovereignty Temple. Eckhart and Eustace both seemed to sympathize with him, with the former uttering some threats and curses at the royals under his breath. Ordinarily, Ferdinand would have checked his language, but as it was imprudent to speak in such a violent and careless manner, now that they were no longer in Ehrenfest. But no one was around these deserted hallways, and anyway, they were well deserved.
I will be working in my hidden room in preparation for tomorrow's meeting with the temple. That should give the two of you at least 2 bells to settle in today. It is not much, but it's the best I can do for now. We will be very busy for the foreseeable future.
Understood.
The word busy, though, was an understatement. On top of settling in the temple and carrying on the duties of the deceased sovereign temple bishop, there were a multitude of tasks that had to be carried out for his other project, the real reason that he was in the sovereignty to begin with. Ferdinand gritted his teeth in frustration. How was he supposed to accomplish anything, given what he had just learned during his meeting with St. Eglantine? With the first plan out the window, the second one would require an obscene amount of resources and time which they were all short of. According to reports, several duchies were on the brink of collapsing. They were in a race against time, yet part of him knew that he needed to get to the bottom of why the ancient magic for Zend's selection was not working. Was the country beyond hope? Were the gods abandoning them? What did that mean for them all? He thought about a certain person back home, remembered the nightmare of her spark fading and her body turning to dust in his hands, and he grit his teeth with determination. Whatever the gods had to say, he was determined not to fail. Jürgen Schmidt would not collapse. Now, there was also the issue of the materials he needed. Aside from the highest quality Fey paper, St. Eglantine was responsible for preparing the ingredients. Once Ferdinand locked himself in his newly formed hidden room, he took out the parchment listing the ingredients she had gathered. He compared it against the list he had given her, and noted with grim satisfaction that it was exactly as he had expected. Only about half the required ingredients were listed.
I am in talks with several duchies to acquire maximum quality paper.
St. Eglantine's outer facade had wavered as she'd spoken, and she had almost looked like she wanted to wring her hands in worry.
However, even if I purchase all the maximum quality paper I can get on my hands on, I won't be nearly enough, nor is the raw materials to make it with. How is one to get 300 maximum quality Fey paper sheets ready by winter's end?
Ordinarily, the best maximum quality Fey paper was made from Gesselhelm, a horned, goat-like creature with balanced elements making it ideal for all manner of brewing. But the creature was becoming increasingly difficult to find. Ferdinand remembered with a pang of regret that one of the projects he had once suggested but failed to bring about in Ehrenfest was to breed and raise Fey creatures in a farm specifically dedicated for harvesting them as ingredients. Maybe he'd get around to it once he was done with this and return to Ehrenfest, if he managed to survive until then. He shook off his fatalistic thoughts and returned to the issue of the paper.
It is
well
well known.
known. Oh, sorry.
It is well known that Klassenberg spotted more than one Lord of Winter in the previous year, but less so that you dispatched a troop of knights in your home duchy's aid.
He had said after a moment's consideration.
I am assuming that with the worsening winter storms, they will ask for assistance again.
Yes.
Eglantine had said.
However, this year I do not plan to.
If a Schneesturm happens to appear,
Ferdinand interrupted rather brusquely.
It would be to your advantage to include a variety of ingredients, especially the skin, as part of Klassenberg's repayment. While it will have a strong winter element, I know of a way to account for this in the brewing process.
St. Eglantine's eyes had widened in surprise, but she nodded quickly.
Right.
His entire meeting with Zent Eglantine had yielded nothing but dismal results. The only positive takeaway was learning that she was making great strides with the ancient language. That, he supposed, was the one good outcome of the previous Zent's third wife's influence. Personally, Magdalena of Dunkelfelger was not someone he liked, and this was definitely not because of their shared personal history. However, if her influence had led to her adoptive daughter learning the language and exhibit such a firm resolve to see this to the end, he had no choice but to begrudgingly credit the woman. As he had two bells to himself, and it was unlikely that he'd have the luxury of so much uninterrupted time to himself any time soon, Ferdinand began getting out some ingredients from the box he'd brought in, as well as tools for his body went cold, and his rapid movements came to a breathless halt. Somehow he knew he wasn't alone, despite the impossibility of anyone entering unnoticed. Someone was in his hidden room with him. In an instant he whirled and pinned the intruder to the wall. Or, that had been his intent, because the moment he saw their shape, short stature, and panicked golden eyes, he stopped abruptly. He knew who it was. He knew their name, their voice, their laughter, the way their long hair shimmered under the starlight. And God's help him, he knew the warmth and softness of their body against his own. He knew who it was from the many dreams he'd had about this girl, who was mine, and yet not mine. But still he asked.
Who are you?
He said, pinning her against the wall, holding her there by the shoulders. Luckily, he'd not slammed her against the hard wall, so she wasn't hurt, only startled. Yet he was not about to release her until he got answers out of her.
It's me, Rosamine,
She said, trying to free herself from his grasp.
Ferdinand, why are you being like this again? I'm not like you're poisoned and in the brink of death.
He twitched at the word poisoned, and his grasp tightened. However, the realization that he was hurting her made him back off. He dropped into his chair, he dropped into his chair, feeling his limbs go limp.
Owie,
She said, rubbing her shoulders and glaring at him with resentment.
what's wrong with you anyway? I thought you'd be glad to see me after so long.
She prattled on, but Ferdinand had a hard time following what she was saying. Now that his shock was gone, all he could do was stare at her blankly as his mind raced.
Glad? Glad? Why would she think I'm glad? I truly have gone insane. There's no way someone from my dreams would appear in flesh and blood and...
It was real, right? He had half a mind to reach out and touch her again just to make sure, but checked the impulse. And anyway, she was now walking around chatting gaily, her long dark blue cape trailing behind.
Believe me, I was as shocked as you when I realized I was no longer tied to Shelaf from Realm. It's been interesting, but I'm so glad that we can talk, especially now that you remember everything.
She leaned forward and gave a smile that could only be described as nervously hopeful.
You do remember, don't you do remember me, don't you?
Ferdinand, still sitting on his chair, drew as far back as he could from her and looked away from those beautiful, wide, golden eyes which, for some reason, made him feel unsettled.
Of course I remember you.
Oh, thank God. Then maybe you can help me. You see?
I remember quite clearly
He said, rising from his chair inexorably.
that you are a fragment of feverish imagination that comes to me when I am asleep. I don't know how or why, but the gods have chosen to torment and bewilder me with a likeness of someone I know.
Rosamine raised her hands to stop him beseechingly.
Wait, please. I have something to say.
Save it.
Ferdinand said curtly, gathering his things with the intent of leaving his hidden room. He was not running away from her. It was a mere tactical retreat. However, before he could move a single step toward the door, the girl wrapped her arms around his torso, rooting him to the spot.
No!
She exclaimed.
What are you doing? Let go.
He demanded, pushing her away.
This is shameless behavior.
I don't care.
She tightened her embrace.
And anyway, no one is here to see. Please, Ferdinand. I've come such a long way to be here. Don't push me away. I promise to answer all your questions, but please stay a little longer. Please.
He considered her words. On one hand, he did not want to entertain this person from his imaginings. Her appearing in the flesh only proved that his sanity was deteriorating, and pursuing further conversations would only take him closer to the dreaded precipice that was madness. But on the other hand, he was not against getting some answers, even if they came from his own delusions.
Fine,
He said with a defeated sigh.
let go already.
The girl did not let go. Instead, she raised her face to his, resting her chin on his chest, and smiled at him while still holding him in the prison of her arms.
I have missed you.
Something inside his chest stirred, seeing her so close. Gods, her eyes! Her beautiful eyes! She was looking at him with something akin to the innocent affection she used to have before he had broken her heart and shattered her illusions. He could feel his defenses crumbling as his heart stirred, weakly, to life. No. Resisting whatever she was doing to him, he placed his hand on her forehead and firmly pushed her head away. She made a sound of protest, glaring at him resentfully and muttering under her breath about his unfairness and how he had been so clingy before, only to now be so cold. Ferdinand ignored her, and walking to the only table in the room, crossed his arms and leant against it. He pointed to the chair with his chin.
Explain.
She obeyed, even though she was still grumbling unhappily. However, once she was perched on the chair, she inhaled.
Well, you see.
She began, but then stopped as her stomach made a horrible noise.
Ah!
She exclaimed, turning pink with embarrassment.
You'll have to excuse me. I haven't had a meal in ages. You look like you could use a meal yourself. What have you done with yourself?
She glowered.
Don't tell me you're skipping meals and subsisting on potions again.
Never mind about that.
Ferdinand said, waving away her concern. He took a potion from his hip and tossed it into her lap.
Take that. Now tell me who you are and what business you have with me.
Right.
She looked at the vial and with a rueful smile returned it to him. Ferdinand smiled inwardly. Good. At least she wasn't a fool. No sane person would take a potion from a stranger just like that. It wouldn't have killed her. It was only a nourishment potion, but there was no way she'd know that.
I don't know exactly how to go about this,
She said, placing a hand to her cheek.
You see, all the other times we met, when I swooped in to save you from death, you always recognized me. But now, you don't even know me and you have the audacity to call me a pest. But that's okay, because though outwards you are a perpetually unhappy lecture factory that loves to torment me, you are still my perpetually unhappy lecture factory and it is imperative that I save you.
Ferdinand held out a hand, trying to make sense of what she was saying.
Wait, what other times? Are you saying we have met like this before, and not just in my dreams? I don't remember meeting you in my life.
Her eyes looked rueful.
Well, this is where things get a little complicated. I know it's hard to believe, but it's all the guidance of the goddess of time.
He perked up at those words, remembering his father's utterings from way back then, when he'd just been a child. It had been such a long time, and much of his past was blurry, at best with gaps at worst. But the mention of the goddess of time, who had been responsible for him being taken in by his father, the late Ob Ehrenfest, made him more inclined to listen to the girl. Yet another part of him reasoned that, of course, a figment of his imagination would know information about him that only he knew. It was all very suspicious. Nevertheless, he listened on.
I come from the future. One day, the goddess of time said that you were in great peril and tasked me with saving you, or at least saving your past self. And that's what I'm doing, or attempting to do. You are making this unnecessarily difficult.
You've been to my past?
Yes, we first met around the time you were brought to Ehrenfest. I helped save you from that horrible fate at the Adogiza Villa. And then, during your years at the Royal Academy, you almost died when you and a few other students encountered a Turnus befallen. That was scary, but nothing I couldn't handle. Nothing I couldn't handle, of course. The one that was seriously scary was the one time, just a little before you entered the temple, when you were poisoned in the castle library, and were all alone. And I thought I wouldn't get to you in time. And finally, now,
She looked thoughtfully at him.
I must say you used to be much more adorable back then. The grimace on your face is not becoming at all.
He gave her a chastising glare, but otherwise ignored her commentary on his person. There was a point that needed explanation.
I would feel inclined to believe you, except I don't remember you, and your story is inconsistent. I am not, as you see, in any life-threatening danger.
At present.
She said, before she widened her eyes and pursing her lips as if she'd said something she shouldn't have. He narrowed his eyes suspiciously.
What? What do you mean? What do you know about my future?
She squirmed in her chair, looking uncomfortable.
Rosamine?
He said in a low voice that, no doubt, sounded a lot more threatening than he wanted to. But it was enough for her eyes to widen in panic. He blinked, and suddenly he was all alone. She had vanished into thin air, and for a second he felt a bit of panic. Then he felt foolish, especially when he looked under the table and even opened the door to glance outside. She was nowhere to be found. Well, good riddance. He was a busy man, and she had only distracted him. He sincerely hoped that this was the end of it, and that she would stay far, far away from him and his dreams. At least, that was what he told himself. Deep down, he relished mysteries and enigmas and this implausible time-traveling dream girl was a mystery he was itching to solve. Of course, he would never admit it even to himself, which is why he returned to his hidden room and immersed himself in work, not at all feeling disappointed that she was gone. He would have continued long past nightfall, except he suddenly felt a disturbance in the air as a result of a massive burst of mana. She was back. Not sure whether he was pleased or annoyed at the prospect of seeing her again, he turned with half a mind to ask her to leave. The words died in his mouth upon seeing that the room had suddenly expanded to twice its size. Not only that, but a small table, complete with food and drink, had materialized, and in the air hung the delicious aroma of a well-cooked meal, reminiscent of those which Myne had her cooks prepare. The table was set for two, and she sat at one of the chairs and beckoned him with a smile.
I'm sure you must be starving by now. How about taking a break?
It took a moment for Ferdinand to fully grasp the impossibility of what he was seeing. Where had she come from? And where had all these things materialized from? How had she... What was she? Who was she? It wasn't the prospect of a meal that drew him like a moth to a flame. In the end, the girl was a mystery he couldn't help but want to unravel and understand. Something told him she wasn't the product of his unstable mind, but rather proof of some strange circumstance. He was also very hungry as well. So putting down his quill and resigning himself to what was now his reality, he sat down with her and ate. End of chapter.
Wow, Rosamine's appearance here really surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you guys I don't know if you guys have ever read the fanfic, what's it called? It's a fanfic about Myne dies and she becomes like an angel or something like that. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I forget the name, but it's completed. So one of the things that I liked a lot was how she and Ferdinand started to get along. And I was like, I kind of want to include that kind of like cozy sort of vibe-ish. So I started thinking of doing that, but then I was like, no, it's gonna get into an even longer fanfic, so I think I'll just curtail it. But this was kind of starting off in that direction. Angel of Wisdom, yes, that's the name of the fanfic. So I was like, yeah, let's have like them bonding over time and becoming friends and all this stuff. So this was where I was gonna get, but I was like, no, we have to finish this fanfic. But yeah. So Rosamine has, she's a gremlin. She does absolutely things that make no sense. Don't worry, I'll explain it next chapter and what is going on there. I think it's next chapter when I explain how she does it and stuff. So the mystery is out. No, he does not have the MP3 player. He has Rosamine in his hidden room. Oh boy. So there we go. So there's also the question about what he and Zent Eglantine talked about. Now we know that it was about how they were gonna get her to have her own Gutri's height. We know that she's not able to get it through circling the shrines and all that stuff. Again, that's the reasons as to why will be explored later on. I think those are most of the questions we wanted to know, right? Like what's going on in the sovereignty with Ferdinand.
And what we wanted to know before this chapter, what did Eglantine and Ferdinand talked?
Oh yes, they talked about that. Also, he's gonna have to do another kind of like a Butcher's Hide, kind of like he did in canon. But of course, there's no Trombe maximum quality paper, so they have to go with parchment, which is based on animal skins. And of course, in this world where, there's a mana shortage, animals are dying off, this kind of creature where they use to make this paper, it's basically going extinct, so you can't really find it. So he has to figure out a way how to make the Gutri's Hide. It's all very terrible news for Ferdinand in every respect, because they are on a. It's Jürgenschmidt is gonna collapse soon if they don't do something about the mana situation. So
are we going to have an explanation why Myne didn't follow with her Trombe paper?
Remember that Myne doesn't have the noble education, right? So all she knows is that it is good anti-fire. If anything, it's fireproof paper. That's as much as she has really realized. So that's the only
Oh.
thing about Trombe paper that makes it special. She doesn't know, because she hasn't had any magical education, and the merchants, of course, they have no magical education, and the scholars, they don't know where Trombe paper is from. All they know is that it's, they don't know that it came from a fey plant. So because she hasn't been educated enough, she can't make up, she can't offer that as a paper for Ferdinand's use, unfortunately. Yeah, it all just comes down to she never got educated with magic, and that's one of the sad outcomes. Ferdinand never let her read those books, and only now is she maybe going to be getting some inkling as she continues on her education. But I don't know, it might be too late. There's no way they can make maximum quality paper before the spring. They have until spring, so yeah. The plan was for Eglantine to circle the shrines and then get her Book of Missionora, so that when the Archduke Conference came around, she would be able to present it and solidify her reign, because there's still some unrest here and there, discontent. So that was the plan. And of course, once she gets her book of Missionora, she would be able to have access to the foundation of the country. Because right now they still don't know where the country's at. Even Ferdinand himself, his book didn't have that information. If we remember, Rosamine only got that information when she got her copy of the Guterside. So if Rosamine, that part of his book hasn't been downloaded, so he has to go to download the book. He hasn't done that yet. He will soon. He will try to go and get it downloaded. So good luck to him on that, because they need information. I think that covers it, right? Yes. I saw that Vincent hopped in on the chat. Welcome, Vincent. Happy to see you. And again, there's Jeremy. It's okay. Sometimes we make mistakes. It's human to make mistakes. I also sometimes jump in to read you guys' lines now and again, so it's okay. Don't worry. But thank you, because you did so good. Applause to all of you who read. Also, all of you who read the long stuff, especially Emmy. You did such a good job reading that long letter. Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Applause.
Yay!
All right. So, anything else that you guys want to comment about this, or point out, or questions you have? Otherwise, we will just end the read. Trying to look up the next chapter.
I think I'm asking myself if this Ferdinand is really different from the other Ferdinands that Myne encounter.
Oh? So, tell me, in what ways is he the same or different from Canon Ferdinand?
Well, he never met her as a child. I feel like if he had met her, he wouldn't remember her. She's a very strong and strange lady who appears out of nowhere and saved him multiple times.
But he doesn't remember her yet. He doesn't remember her.
So I ask myself, did the Guardians of Time change something very early on, or is this really a second, it created a second path that Rosamine didn't mangle yet?
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So it's still, so you guys remember how Rosamine created a second reality, yes? So
yes.
So let's follow. I wanna do the Back to the Future diagram. You know how when Doc is explaining, split the alternate reality and okay. So in this alternate reality where Biff reigns supreme, where chaos reigns supreme, Ferdinand doesn't have memories of the trombe. He doesn't have memories of that, of all that stuff. And it's every time his memories come. I want to explain it, but I can't because no. Hold on there. I will explain it. We will read the chapters. We will read the chapters, and it will be explained. It will be explained. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It'll be explained. How far into the AO3 chapters are you in?
Oh, I am reading as I highlight. So
Okay. All right. Yeah, I believe the chapters that have been lately published will answer the question. Teal, let me know if you have any questions or if I haven't made it clear enough. Send me a DM or let me know. Let me know. So I can revise it or something. I don't know.
I feel like if you answered the few questions I have remaining, I'd probably be able to guess the ending. So maybe not.
Okay. All right. It's hard when okay, you guys. It's hard because it makes sense in my head. So I'm just trying to write chapters that will explain the mechanisms of this strange alternate reality. So if at the end of the whole thing, when we reach the final chapter, if something still doesn't make sense, I'll have to go back and revise it or do a FAQ at the end, like an FAQ chapter. I don't know. Like ask me anything chapters at some point. I'm gonna try to explain it as best as I can though. Yeah. So let's see. The next today's Wednesday. So on Monday we will pick up on chapter 88 and 89. So how Rosamine happened to appear in the flesh, because remember she only appeared in Ferdinand's dreams. So how she managed to do so here is going to be explained in the next chapter. And in the next one, chapter 89, we go back to Ehrenfest and we pick up on a Dolores chapter. So we have only seen Dolores be like a snide little bratty girl in Elvirus's house. So we're gonna get into her little arc situation in the next read along. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. I like the winter arc. I enjoyed writing it. I hope you guys enjoy reading it together as well. With that in mind, though, I think we're done. We're going to be watching Skip and Loafer after this over on the Discord. So if you want to join us, hop on over, skip on over, skip on over. Don't loaf around. Skip on over here to our Discord server, to the Nest. And let's have some anime watch times, cozy vibes. Yay. Again, thank you so much to the following folks who read today. We had Teal, who read Dolores, Patrick, who read Eckhart, Harami, who read Myne, and then also Teal also read Eustace, as well as Ferdinand, and Harami also read Eglantine. And of course, thank you to our highlighting Miss Theonora's Harami and Teal, who made it possible so that we could comfortably and happily read these chapters. And C. Rodriguez, thank you so much. Says, I love this story. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy it, and I hope that you join us for the next read along. I have been a little bit under the weather, and also not under the weather. Oh, November was bad. I'm fighting off a flu, like it's coming on, but I'm hydrating and stuff like that. So I don't want to get sick, but I'm trying to also update the AO3. It's happening. I just
some vitamin C, damn it.
Yeah, I know. Some zinc and vitamin C and water. It's the wind, you guys. The Santa Anas are hitting us, and it's pretty bad here in Southern California. So yeah. Keep the people here in your thoughts and prayers so that we can all be safe and make it through this terrible weather. All right. But other than that, we will see you on Monday. And thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is your Magpie and the rest of the gang. And take care, everybody. Have a good one. Say bye-bye, gang.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.
Matane.